welcome to another edition of Discern. I'm Ross, and I'm back with you to unpack some world news with my friend Nick Pitts. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Ross. Good to be with you.
It's great to be with you again, Nick. Today we're going to talk about what's going on in Canada with the truckers. You know, I've heard and seen a lot of news about blockades, and it's going to cause supply chain issues. Can you just catch us up? What is happening up there, and how does that affect us, and what's unprecedented about it?
Yeah, about a month ago, you had a contingent of truckers anywhere from some numbers are putting it at 5,000, others numbers are putting it at 50,000 truckers that made their way to Ottawa to be able to lift up their voices, to be able to protest. Bari Weiss has got a really great piece where she interviewed over 100 individuals. And what we're finding is that this is not a monolithic group of people. This isn't the same type of person, nor does everyone have the same cause they're rallying against right now. And so I think it's really important for us to understand that this is not a homogeneous group, that there's a lot of different types of people that are gathering together, have made their way to Ottawa, and now are blocking bridges and blockades, et cetera, that they're offering in Ottawa. But what's interesting is we're finding that they're protesting various different things. Some are protesting against the vaccine mandates. Others are protesting against what they feel as though they're not being listened to and heard. Others have offered up protests relative to some of the measures that are being taken in schools and curriculum that's being offered in schools right now. So it's a very diverse group of people that have gathered together to lift up their voice, and their voice is being heard right now in a way that hasn't been heard in a while.
So, Nick, we like to ask, what does the Bible have to say about this idea of protest? And in this case, you know, these people are using their occupation as a way to express an opinion or a viewpoint. What does the Bible have to say?
Yeah, the biblical narrative is rich with individuals that raise their voices to make a particular point. This goes back to Abraham with God when he was arguing, going back and forth with God relative to Sodom and Gomorrah. It stretches onward to the Egyptian midwives in Exodus 1 that used their occupation in order that they might be civilly disobedient towards Pharaoh and his edict of killing the firstborn child. Stretches to Daniel relative to food and dietary measures that were being leveled against him, to even going all the way to Paul and what Paul is saying, it's greater to obey God rather than man in Acts chapter 5. What we continue to see stretched all throughout the biblical narrative is that there is a rich history of protest. Now, we need to make a distinction between protest and rioting, being that protest is raising your voice in accordance with the laws, and rioting is having a sense of lawlessness, right? These are what we're seeing in Canada by and large, because again, it's not a monolithic group, but what we're seeing by and large is individuals that are abiding by the laws. And I think that has a rich history in the biblical narrative, because essentially when you're protesting, you're lifting your voice and you're asking God to be true to his promise, which what does he say in Isaiah 1? But come and let us reason together. Protesters are individuals that are lifting their voices and asking, let's reason together toward a particular solution.
Yeah, Nick, we've hit this topic before in the scripture in Isaiah of come reason together being a really helpful kind of guideline and just how we navigate conflict just in general. I mean, we'd love to see, I think personally, this is a me opinion, I'd love to see more of that just in our nation in areas where we see this intense bipartisan or different viewpoints. Can we reason together? Is there a format or a forum for us to reason together? It's certainly something that I would love to see more of.
Yeah, Ross, I think it's really interesting. The problem isn't with disagreements. The problem is that we disagree so badly right now that instead of talking to listen to the other side and wait and respond, that we're just talking past one another right now. And I think what makes what's happening right now in Canada so unprecedented is because the reality is that Canada has a historical bent ever since the American founding of being much more passive to and loyalist to authorities. Hence the reason why the Loyalists all went north to Canada when you had the rebellious founders and those New Englanders that decided that they weren't going to continue to be taxed on their tea. And so we saw this split of Loyalists that went up north and continued and perpetuated 200 plus years later to be loyal to the king and loyal to authorities. And now what we're seeing is the opposite of that, where individuals, despite what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is doing, that are saying enough is enough. We're tired of this, and we're wanting to lift up our voice and disagree with some of the movements that's happened by Canadian officials right now.
Nick, one thing we're asking this week and most weeks on the show, given the news, is how can we as believers be praying for this situation?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would continue to offer is, one, we want to always heed what it says in 1 Timothy 2 of wanting to pray for the rulers and authorities, but also seize this opportunity that whenever there's discombobulation and disequilibrium that happens at the national level, it opens up an opportunity to be able to have faith conversations. And I would very much want to pray for the Canadian church right now that has gone through quite a bit over this pandemic stretch, and pray for them that they might be able to have the reasoned voice that's seasoned with grace and saturated in love, so that they might point to the one that is coming to restore perfect peace on earth, which is King Jesus.
Super helpful, Nick. As we go into the weekend, it's just good to be reminded to pray for our brothers and sisters in their churches around the world. And that's a theme that we've hit this week, is just an opportunity to remember, look, we have believers everywhere that have unique challenges specific to their region, specific to their culture. And we can always be loving them by praying for them, which is very biblical. So thanks again for the time this week. It's been great to have you on with us, Nick.
Great to be with you, Ross.
Hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll see you back next week right here on Discern.